Sometimes when people say that they feel lost, what I've observed is sometimes they may really mean that they're just tired. Not necessarily physically tired, but something that's internal, mentally, or maybe even soul tired. The kind of tired that builds over time, the kind that comes from carrying responsibilities for such a long stretch of time without much relief. I think about that parent who hasn't had a quiet morning maybe in months, that high performer professional who's answering emails in the morning. They wake up and they immediately grab their phone. I think about that leader who keeps everyone else steady while running on empty themselves. And I know that's you. You keep showing up, you keep handling things, you keep doing just what needs to be done. And after a while, something subtle begins to happen on the inside of you. Your energy drops, your patience gets much thinner, your perspective begins to shift. And suddenly, the thoughts start creeping in, such as maybe I chose the wrong path. Maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. Maybe it seems like everyone else has figured it out and I'm just over here drifting. See, those thoughts feel real in the moment. But what I've learned over the years is that sometimes the problem is not direction. More often, the problem is actually depletion. See, when your tank is empty, everything begins to look like you're going in the wrong direction. Your calling starts to feel like a burden. The responsibilities you have feel heavier than they used to be. Even the things that you once loved start to feel like obligations. And if we're not careful, you can start to try to make big life decisions from that place of exhaustion. You start questioning your purpose when really what you needed was a little recovery, maybe a nap, maybe a disconnect, maybe a recharge. I see this with my students and my coaching clients all the time. Right around the middle of the semester for my students, they start telling themselves, did I choose the wrong major? Maybe this isn't the career for me. They start to believe that they should walk away from the whole thing. And sometimes the conversations we end up happening is just very simple. I ask them one question. How much sleep have you had this week? How much downtime? What have you been doing for yourself? And generally, the phone, the Zoom, the office hours gets very quiet after those questions. Because exhaustion has a way of disguising itself as doubt. And doubt, when left unchecked, starts to sound a lot like the truth. But I can tell you, it's not just students. I've seen this in my own life too. There have been seasons where I started to question things that once felt completely clear about. Moments where I almost convinced myself that I needed to change direction completely. But when I stepped back, when I slowed down, when I actually gave myself, or how about this, allowed myself some time to recover, I noticed something. The path didn't change, not one bit. My capacity changed, it expanded. And every time, once my capacity came back, it's amazing how that fog, those clouds lifted. Clarity returned, not because I had discovered something brand new, some major insight about my life, but it was because I was no longer evaluating my life through the lens of exhaustion. See, exhaustion is a terrible compass. It distorts everything. When you're depleted, small problems feel ginormous. Simple decisions become overwhelming. And the voice in your head gets louder and meaner than it usually is. You stop asking, what can I improve? And start asking, what's wrong with me? That's a dangerous place to make decisions from because fatigue does not mean failure and exhaustion does not mean that you are wrong in life. Sometimes it simply means you've been carrying more than you realize. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not to push harder, not to lock in, not to dial in. Sometimes the bravest thing to do is pause, to reset, to reconnect with the reasons why you started in the first place. Because I can tell you, clarity has a funny way of returning when your system settles down, when you let all of that frenetic energy settle, when you sleep, when you laugh again, when you spend time with someone who reminds you who you are on the inside. And how about this, on the outside of all those responsibilities you have? When you step away long enough to remember that your value is not tied to your output. And slowly and assuredly, things shift. That same life that felt overwhelming just yesterday starts to make a little more sense. That project and work that felt impossible begins to feel manageable. Not because really anything changed overnight, but it's because you recovered enough so that you can see clearly now. Reminds me of that song. I can see clearly now. So if you've been feeling lost lately, sit with this before you do anything else. Before you assume your life is off track, before you decide you chose the wrong thing, before you start tearing everything down just to start over, no need to have chaos, rip it all down just to build it back up. Ask yourself some honest questions. Am I actually lost or am I just tired? Because those two problems are genuinely different. One requires a new direction, but the other requires restoration. And that restoration is often much closer to us than we think. Sometimes it's sleep. Sometimes it's a walk outside without your phone. Well, Emmanuel, what I'm going to play my music on? You know what I'm talking about. Sometimes it's one real conversation with that person or someone who knows your heart. Give yourself that first. Then look at your life. Again, look at the same road that you were questioning yesterday, and you might find that that path never disappeared. You just needed a little strength to see it again. And as always, guys, I love you much.